Okay, welcome back to Business Models Part 2. We'll say Business Models Part 2. You already got Business Models Part 1, and we'll do a quick little review. We talked about in Business Models Part 1, the Business Model Canvas, and we're actually going to go through each one of these components on the Business Model Canvas. Last time we talked about customer segments. We used 4 Nike kind of commercials or online ads to talk about demographic, geographic, behavioristic, and psychographic type approaches, and then the different customer segments that Nike was targeting with each one of those. Mass market for like Snow Day and a niche market for the Girls, Girls, Girls commercial. So keep that in mind. And then if you think about Nike from a business segments perspective, and each one of these business segments to some extent translates to a customer segment, you can see they have footwear, apparel, equipment, and global brands. A lot of you are probably surprised that Nike actually owns Converse. Some of you may have already known that. But then each one of these, for footwear, there's running, basketball, football, training, action sports, etc. Each one of those is a separate and distinct offer that it needs to make. Now, footwear, it can make one offer for a lot of things that are like cleats related. In other words, you could have maybe football and soccer in the same type of value prop, but normally they are having to target each one of those customer segments individually because a different cleat is used for soccer than is used for football. So you can see that this could potentially be all of the customer segments that Nike has, and there's a bunch. And one way to kind of get a quick dive into customer segments is to look at business segments and then figure out, do I need for each one of these a different customer segment? In some cases you will, and in some cases you won't, but it's a quick way to kind of look at a business and start figuring out where and how are my customer segments laid out. Now we're going to go into value prop. And again, value prop we covered in a separate segment. So I'm going to go through this very quick. This is more of a reminder for you that value proposition is part of the business model canvas. And remember, the things from a value proposition that we talked about is what value do we deliver to customers? Which one of our customers' problems are we solving? Which specific problem for our customer are we solving? Is it that they need a baseball glove? Is it that they need a golf club? What is the problem we're solving? Got to get the ball in the hole, need a club to do that. Have to catch the ball, need a glove to do that. What bundle of products and services are we offering, and what makes us unique? Remember, at the end of the day, the value proposition, it's all about what makes us unique. Why would a customer pick us? What need do we satisfy? If you think about the streaming market now, what customer need are they satisfying? Netflix, on-demand video, that's the need they're satisfying. So you have to think about every single thing that makes you unique, figure out what need for customers you're satisfying. Those are the 2 key parts to the value proposition. Here's an example for Nike. Create a technical superior product made of the best materials with the latest technologies, positioned as the most fashionable and endorsed by top athletes and stars. Dollar Shave Club, a great shave for a few bucks a month. No commitment, no fees, no BS. You clearly know what their value is. They're giving you a great shave. That's the need that they are filling. The problem they're solving is you need a great shave. Then they're telling you you don't have any commitments, you don't have any fees, and there's no BS involved with this. MailChimp sends better email. Couldn't be any easier. What problem are you solving? The problem with sending email. MailChimp sends it better. FreshBooks, small business accounting software designed for you, the non-accountant. What problem are they solving? The understanding of an accounting system for people who are not accountants. They are laying out there very easily and very clearly what problem they're solving. They're solving business accounting for non-accountants. And so those are the types of things from a value proposition that you have to be thinking about. And again, we covered this in a previous segment, so try to make sure that you're remembering, value proposition and why us. One of the big things, why us? Why choose me? What makes us unique? That's the key for value prop. Here's some examples, weak or strong, right? We sell insurance. That's pretty weak value proposition. We sell insurance. Okay, so the need you're solving is that I need insurance. But if we say it like, we help families and individuals protect their most important assets. Now that's a much stronger value proposition because I'm talking to like what we actually help you do. We help you protect your assets versus we sell insurance. That's more of a product statement. We are the leading provider of multimedia advertising services. Doesn't make any sense. Okay. We help businesses improve their bottom line. Well, that's making me money. What problem are you solving? You're helping me make money. The other one is all about them. Remember, we want it to be about you. What problem are you solving for your customer? We sell shoes and athletic gear. That's about them. That's what they do. But if we bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world, now we're talking Nike. We bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. Wow, that's a lot different than we sell shoes and athletic gear. So this is some examples to start thinking about from value proposition, whether they're weak or strong value props. So now let's get into channels. And we kind of were joking about channels, that we're not talking about channels on your TV or, what channel can I go watch the game on? But this is how a company communicates with and reaches its customer segment to deliver its value prop. So you have this value proposition. We bring inspiration to every athlete and innovative products. We bring inspiration and innovative products to every athlete in the world. Well, how we communicate to our customer segments is our channel. So here's a really simple way to look at channels. Really simple way to look at channels. There's direct channels and there's indirect channels. Direct channels, a sales force, somebody knocking on the door saying, hey, do you want to buy? Somebody calling you on the phone. Hi, we have for sale. What problem do you have? We have something that will help solve your problem. That is a very direct channel because a sales force is out trying to create. A direct channel is a web sales, because if you think about web sales, it's pretty direct. You as the customer go in and put in your search, it doesn't matter what, looking for innovative solutions to cat litter boxes. I actually did this a little while back and bought this contraption that self-cleans. Whether it works or not remains to be seen. We just set it up this weekend. But that's a direct sales. You go in, you make your search, you find your product, you buy, and the product comes to you. That's very direct. An indirect way, because you, the manufacturer, are talking to your customer in the direct sales. You're reaching them one-on-one. You're touching them. An indirect way is you're going through think of it almost as like a third party, or there's another layer that's involved. Meaning I, the manufacturer, ship my stuff to a store, even if it's my store, and now customers come into the store. That's indirect because they're not getting it straight anymore. They're having to go somewhere else to get it. Or a partner store, Dick's Sporting Goods. There's Nike stores, right, where you can go to a Nike outlet. That would be a Nike-owned store. Then there's Dick's Sporting Goods, and you can go to Dick's Sporting Goods and you can buy Nike shoes because Dick's Sporting Goods is a partner store to Nike. And so those are indirect ways that Nike reaches its customers. Those are indirect channels that they're using because they are not you're not going to the website and saying, yes, let me buy a pair of Nike running shoes size 9. That's a web sale. It's very direct, one-to-one. You and the company and the customer talking directly, customer and company talking directly. Indirect, you're having to kind of work through this third-party type thing. And so Nike might ship their shoes to Dick's. You then walk up to the Dick's, person, the employee there, and you're saying, hey, I'm looking for a size 9 running shoe. What do you recommend? They may recommend Nike, but they also have other brands that they represent because they're a partner store to Nike, but they're also a partner store to Adidas and Asics and New Balance. And so now instead of having this direct relationship, you have an indirect relationship with your customer. So that is a channel. So channel phases, right? How do we reach customers depending on the channel? Well, if you think about it, there's this awareness, evaluation, purchase, delivery, and after sale process that happens. How do I make you aware of my product? Whether that's an advertisement, whether that is Nike's model is some athlete endorses it. How do we evaluate the product? How do we, as the customer, evaluate products? How do we, as the company, help our customers evaluate the product? And that is a big part of the value proposition, because if you know that a customer has a certain need, then your job in your value proposition is talk to, we meet this need, and then tell them uniquely how. And that helps them in the evaluation of the product. Purchase. How do we allow customers to purchase it? Can they pay cash? Do they have to use a credit card? Can they buy it through the web? Do they have to go into our store? Can they buy it through the web and pick it up at a store? How we allow them to purchase products is a big part of our channel kind of phase. How do we deliver the value prop to customers? Again, we've already talked about that quite a bit. And then the after sales. Do we provide any kind of post-purchase customer support? How do we make sure that the customer is happy with the way they've done this? This happens a lot now. You can't almost buy anything online. I mean, I went to the doctor last week just to have something checked out. And when I finished, I got 2 surveys. One, how was the customer experience with the people at the front that greeted you? And 2, how was the whole doctor portion? Were they knowledgeable? Did they know what to talk to you about? Did they feel like they had your best interest at heart? Did they give you lots of options? I mean, so this after sales customer support they're doing is really important to them. And so this whole channel phases, like awareness, evaluation, purchase, delivery, after sales, you as the company have to be thinking, I need to provide service in each one of these buckets. You can't just think like, well, I'm just going to sell a product and my customer goes away. It's not that quite that easy. You have to help the customer, 1, be aware you have a product to sell. 2, help them evaluate the product. 3, make sure that they have a way to purchase the product. 4, make sure you can get it into their hands. How do you deliver it? 5, how do you provide support after you've sold it? And so it's a very thorough sales process. Your business model, channels, is a key component of your business model, and it has a sub-process inside of it, and you have to be thinking along all of these lines. So let's look at Nike's channels. Nike sells directly to customers through its brand and category experience stores, online sales, its factory stores, its dealer networks. So, footwear stores, sporting goods stores, athletic, specialty stores, department stores, skate and tennis shops, and they do licensing. So this is how Nike sells to customers. I really shouldn't have the word directly, because we had just covered here direct and indirect. And direct is sales force and web sales, and indirect is all the other things. Really, I should have this slide say Nike sells to customers through Nike brand and category experience stores, online sales. Online sales would be direct. Nike brand and category experience stores would be indirect. Nike factory stores, indirect. Dealer networks, indirect. Licenses, because they allow other people to put Nike's license on their product. And so forget the word directly here. This is actually how Nike sells to customers, okay? So you can see all the different channels that they have. And remember, all of these channels, Nike's had to think about for each one of them, how am I making sure I'm communicating properly to my customer? Okay, now let's go to the customer relationship. If you think about customer relationships, it depends on what you're trying to do. Am I trying to acquire you as a customer? Well, I need one type of strategy to do that. Am I trying to retain you as a customer? I need another type of strategy to do that. And each one of you has bought things before for the first time where they were trying to acquire you as the customer. And I'm sure almost every one of you has bought something on a repeated process. Anybody who is paying for something monthly. And I don't mean like your car payment monthly. That was a customer acquisition. They acquired you as a customer and now you're paying for your car monthly. I mean something like Spotify, where they're retaining you and every month you're paying whatever that is, $9 or $6 or whatever the student rate is that you can pay. They're retaining you. How are they doing that? They had to come up with a strategy to retain you. They acquired you, so they did some advertising or one of your friends, however they did it through social media influencing, whatever it was, they acquired you as a customer. Spotify got you to sign up. Now they're retaining you as a customer. And how they're doing that is by providing, my guess is, music in the genre that you are most likely to listen to and that you are satisfied with the service and the way that music is being delivered to you. And that is the customer retention portion. And so they're having a strategy to do that. Or sometimes there's separate strategies to boost sales or to upsell you. You come in to buy a car, next thing you know, you're in front of the finance person, and they're trying to convince you to put some kind of extended warranty on it or some kind of special interior, treatment that makes the seats stay better. And that is them trying to upsell you. And so different relationships are required with customers depending on what phase you're in. So you have to think about what type of relationship does each of the customer segments want? In other words, do they want like a personal assistance? In other words, it's human interaction. Do they want dedicated assistance, something like a wealth manager maybe, who there's, somebody who's investing is like, no, I need somebody every day to tell me what I'm buying. Do they want self-service? where customers help themselves? Is it an automated service? You know, maybe some kind of books and movies get recommended, and you can see that all the time on Netflix. Because you watched X, you might be interested in Y. And you can see that that's what they're doing. They're making some sort of automated service. You know, so those are the types of things that you have to think about from a customer relationship. You know, what does each customer segment want from a relationship? Do they want it personal? Do they want it dedicated? Do they want self-service? Do they just want some automated service where there's recommendation? And to think about customer relationship, you have to think about what relationships are established already. If you're going to go get into an industry, how are customers used to being treated in that industry? Now, that doesn't mean you have to treat them that way, because you may create a different way to do it. I mean, Amazon, they didn't say, well, customers always go to stores to buy products, so we're going to have to create big, huge stores and put lots of products in them. They said, no, we think we can establish a different type of relationship. You just have to think through what exists now, so that as you're pivoting and trying to get to the type of relationship you want, you understand the way customers are used to being dealt with currently. How costly are the relationships? In other words, is it expensive? A one-on-one relationship, right, are costly. If I had to have a salesperson go out and sell you your toothbrush, so let's think about a toothbrush. How much does a toothbrush cost? How many toothbrushes do you buy a year? Let's say you're great at turning your toothbrush over and you buy 4 toothbrushes a year. Imagine if we had to hire a personal salesperson to sell each one of your toothbrushes, and they had to knock on your door and convince you to buy a toothbrush. I mean, there's just no way that you could afford to do that. You couldn't afford to pay the salesman enough. He couldn't sell enough toothbrushes to cover his salary and for you to make any money. So how costly the relationships are is something that you have to think about. Meaning, I can't have a salesperson sell toothbrushes, so I have to figure out a way to have this be more self-service, where customers help themselves, where customers come into a store where I have a lot of toothbrushes and they pick the one they want. And there's no cost of transaction associated with me with each individual one, or I need to have it be an online type deal. And then how do we integrate the customer relationship in with the rest of our business model? And we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, if you think about Nike, and we're using Nike as kind of our ongoing running example here. And I'm wearing a little Nike shirt here today just to make it, more prevalent. Everything we do starts with the consumer. That's what the Nike CEO, Mark Palmer, said. Everything we do starts with the consumer. It's our obsession with serving that consumer that sharpens our focus and drives our growth. And so Nike has made a very conscious decision to say, we are going to be customer focused. Okay, so that's enough on that. So now let's talk about revenue streams. Revenue streams, really easy, right? What value do they want to pay? How are they paying currently? How would they prefer to pay? How much does each revenue stream contribute to overall revenues? And there's really 2 types of revenue streams I want you thinking about. Fixed, which are defined by static variables, like a list price or a volume dependent. If you buy 10,000, you get a 5% discount. That's a volume dependent thing. And dynamic, that's based on changing market conditions. If you think about dynamic, the easiest way to think about dynamic is an airline. The more seats that are sold on the airline and the less that they have available, and typically the tighter you are to your departure date, the more expensive the seats become. That's because they're dynamically priced. It's not always $50 for a seat. Doesn't matter if I buy it a month ahead or 2 days ahead. That's not the way it works with an airline, because they're dynamically pricing their seats. Fixed, a seat at a Texans football game, that is fixed pricing if you are, like a season ticket holder and you own the right to buy the seats. They don't say, well, the Steelers are a more attractive game than, the Baltimore Ravens, and so you pay more money to go to the Steelers game. That's not the way it works. They use fixed pricing. It's based on a list price for tickets. So think through in your revenue stream bucket, all of these different things. How are customers paying? How much would they like to pay? How would they prefer to pay? In other words, they have to send in money or a check, but they would prefer to pay with a credit card. They would prefer to pay online, etc. And as you're thinking about your revenue streams, because you're going to make them in different places, you might have revenue streams coming from, an easy way to look at it is look at music. I'm selling my CDs, and merchandising. I'm selling t-shirts and hats and accessories. How much does each one of those contribute to my overall? And then make sure, based on what they're contributing, you're putting a proper focus from a priority perspective on whichever one is producing the greatest percentage of revenue especially if the greatest percentage of revenue also lines up with the greatest percentage of margin. Okay, so we talked about revenue streams, we talked about one time, we talked about reoccurring. Here's Nike's revenue stream and how it's grown from their online segments, and you can see that online sales have grown for them tremendously. Look at 2009 to all the way to 2019. It's more than tripled, and it's continuing to grow at a very fast rate. And so Nike is spending quite a bit of time trying to figure out how do we optimize our online strategy, because that's a direct way for us to get to our consumer. And that segment, those people that are buying online, are contributing significantly to our profitability because we do not have to carry and run a store to get our products to them. Okay, key resources. Not even going to waste a lot of time on this. These are asset-based things, and they're the most important things that make the business work. And there's a bunch of different ones. There's physical, intellectual, human, and financial. I'll give you an example of physical asset. You need a warehouse to store your product in. That's a physical asset. An intellectual asset, in Nike's case, that would be like their brand, or proprietary knowledge is intellectual, or a patent, or a copyright. All of those are intellectual type assets. Human assets, those are the people working in your business. Like, let's assume that you are a marketing agency. The people who are doing creative for you, those are very important assets in your business. And then the financial assets are straightforward. It's things like cash or lines of credit. In other words, how do I keep my business functioning? So those are the financial assets. So again, don't need to spend a lot of time on that, because key resources from an assets perspective, physical, intellectual, human, financial, remember there's 4 of them, and then just remember that there's some different examples of each. Warehouses, a brand or proprietary knowledge, creative might be a great one for human, and financial, cash, lines of credit, etc. So you need to be asking yourself these same questions every time. What key resources do our value propositions require? If you say that your value proposition is you offer the most colors of something, might not be the greatest value proposition ever created, but you better make sure then that you have the resources to create all of the different colors. How do you distribute? What customer relationship have you established with your customers? And what are your revenue streams? All of your resources need to support all of these things. Nike key resources, manufacturing, obviously one of their key resources. Brand, we already talked about that. Their supply chain, how they get their product from their overseas manufacturers into the actual stores, and their patents and their intellectual property. Those would be the key resources for Nike. Key activities, these are the things that a company must do to make its business model work. In other words, I have to produce shoes. In Nike's case, they have to design clothes. They said they will be one of the best designers. They didn't say they will be the best manufacturer. Remember, they outsource manufacturing. So in Nike's case, you know, for production, if you're thinking about key activities and production is one, then designing is a key thing for them. Problem solving. In other words, a consulting organization maybe, or a hospital is a great example. I mean, doctors are basically just problem solvers. You come in with a list of symptoms, they figure out, what's wrong with this person based on all the symptoms, based on tests, and then they solve the problem. And so that would be a key activity, problem solving, for a hospital. So if you were to say our business model for a hospital, one of the key things you better be good at is problem solving. And then if you think about like platforms and networks from a key activity, think about a credit card organization. It's having to match every purchase to a customer and then get a bill out. And so the platform or the network that they're doing that on is extremely important. So that would be a key activity if I was a credit card company. So think about key activities that way. Think about them from the perspective of what are they actually doing? And you take it right back through the same questions all the time. What does our value prop require? What distribution channels? What are the relationships? What are the revenue streams? Let's look at Nike, its key activities, research and development. We talked about it, manufacturing and distribution. And really it's their manufacturing relationships, not their actual manufacturing. And demand creation, a key activity for them, they said up front, is that they just want to create demand. Partnerships, who are the people that make your business model work? What key suppliers do you have to have? There's things like strategic alliances between non-competitors. Look at Starbucks and Barnes and Noble, for instance. You can go into a Barnes and Noble, and yet you can sit down and get a Starbucks cup of coffee. So that's one thing you can look at. Cooperation, strategic partnerships between non-competitors instead of alliances. And that would be like Apple Pay and MasterCard, for instance. Apple Pay is a strategic partnership. It's not an alliance. And then you have like joint ventures to develop new businesses. Dow Corning, if you think about Dow Corning, I don't know if any of you know that, but way back in the 1940s, there was an issue with like airplane displays fogging up. And Dow and Corning got together to kind of solve this problem, and it became a joint venture company. This joint venture company became Sony Ericsson with over 10,000 employees. So it kind of evolved, and that was a joint venture to develop new business. So there's key partnerships. In your case, it's a network of suppliers and partners. If you are a lemonade company, a key partner is whatever that supplier is that provides you your lemons, whatever that supplier is that provides you your sweetener for your drink. So it doesn't have to be on a huge, huge level. The last one I want to talk about is buyer-supplier relationships, and these are reliable supplies. These happen a lot in like the car industry. If you think about driving down a highway and looking, and you see a big car manufacturing plant, if you were to get off the highway and explore the area around there, you would also see manufacturing plants for things like the car seats and the electronic equipment that are going inside of those cars. And those are all suppliers that have been strategically located next to their buyer because they don't want to have a long distribution chain to get their supplies to them. And so that is a key buyer-supplier relationship or a key partnership, and that's from a buyer-supplier perspective. Okay, why partner? Because you want to optimize your economy of scale, you want to reduce your risk of uncertainty, you want to acquire maybe particular resources and activities. And again, you have to ask yourself, who are our key partners, who are our key suppliers? A lot of this is about asking yourself questions. Here's Nike's, right? If you look at Nike, it's got influencers, dealers, and customer segments. It's got contract manufacturers. And so you can see kind of how Nike makes money and who its partners are here in this little slide. And it lays it out pretty easily for you. The other thing that it does is it lets you know which one are cost elements. In other words, what are they paying for versus which ones are relevant revenue elements, which ones are they getting money for. And so that's an important way to kind of look at what's going on. So a simple way for you to do yours would be to lay out a picture. Same thing. Cost structure. What does it cost me to operate my business? There's two types. There's cost-driven and value-driven. A value-driven operation would be something like a luxury hotel. A cost-driven, an airline. How much does it cost me for my fuel? How much does it cost me for my labor? How much does it cost me for my gate fees? That all becomes my cost. I have to then figure out from there, how do I make money? Because remember, the business model is all about the profit that you get. And so there's two types, value-driven, where what it costs me doesn't really matter. It only costs me $100, but I'm going to try to sell it for $10,000 anyway, because that's more of a value-driven model. A cost-driven model is definitely much more where it's, A plus B plus C equals my cost. Then I have to figure out how do I get a profit on top of that. So value-driven, obviously, almost always has greater profit margins. So again, what are the costs inherent in our business? What resources are the most expensive? What activities are the most expensive? And you work your way through it. Remember, a business model only has two levers, pricing and costs. Those are the only two things you have working for you. So you can't really do much more. If you think about it, if your costs are $100, the only way to make money is to then somehow sell your thing for 110. Like, you only have two levers you can pull. I can either cut costs if my price is too high to keep my price in line, or I have to raise my price if my costs are high. There's nothing else you can do. And so by using the business model canvas and thinking about your partnerships and your activities and all of that, you can start figuring out a way. Is there a way I can cut my costs? How can I optimize my pricing? Can I deliver it from a distribution channel differently? Can I offer it to my customers directly, et cetera, et cetera? So let's look at this Nike kind of shoe, the financial anatomy of a $100 Nike shoe. You can see that $5 is Nike's profit on a $100 shoe. $50 goes to the retailer margin, which is why if Nike can sell more online, they make more money, because that whole retail margin is cut out, and that actually now goes to Nike. So it would help them make a lot more money. And so I'm not going to get into this in too much detail, but I think it probably surprises you when you see how much of it is sliced up. You know, it's $22 to produce the shoe, $5 for freight, insurance, and custom duties. They spend $5 on marketing, $11 on other expenses and overhead, whole bunch of stuff, $2 on taxes, $5 becomes their net profit or income because there's that $50 section that is stuck out there with the retailer, which is why that online selling is so important to a store like Nike. So that's Nike. If you want to take one quick example through, and I'm going to run you through Gillette. Gillette is, you know, everybody knows razor blades, and you think about its key partners, it would be its manufacturers and its retailers. Who's making our blades and our handles, and who's selling our blades and our handles? What is its key activities? Marketing, R&D, and logistics. Key resources, branding and patents. Cost structure, marketing, logistics, manufacturing, and R&D. Those are all the things they're spending money on. Its value proposition is that, you know, its razor handle and its blade gives you the closest shave, no shaving bumps, the most comfortable. I'm sure you guys have all seen and heard the value propositions for Gillette. And what's interesting with it is that the customer relationship is kind of built in or locked in, is the quotes I used, because only Gillette blades fit Gillette handles. Now, they do have some generic blade manufacturers out there, but if you buy a handle, then you're locked into buying the blades. The channels, they sell both retail and online. They have these now programs where you can get every couple of months a shipment sent to you. The revenue streams is one handle purchase and frequent blade replacements. That's their revenue streams. They sell you a handle, then they sell you blades. And customer segments, this is a mass market. They're selling to everyone. They don't have where it's like a niche market and they're saying, well, you know, for people over 50, this handle works better or this blade works better. It's just basically shave your face and all the customers are treated the same. So that's a business model canvas example for Gillette, just to show you how simple and easy it can kind of be thought through without getting overly complex. Here's a couple other business models. Airbnb, they take a 3% commission. San Francisco Park, prices are dynamic. It depends how much is left there, so they can incrementally raise and lower. Uber, most of you have taken an Uber, 5 to 20% commission on rides, etc. Patients like me, this one's interesting because their business model is all about collecting information from a community of users, and they collect it for free, and then they sell that data to pharmaceutical companies for research. So there's all these different types of business models that are out there. You can take commissions, you can have dynamic pricing based on demand, you can collect stuff for free, sell the data, but there are a lot of different ways that you can create a profit, you know, design a business model to create a profit. These are just a few to help you kind of think through. So the final thing I want to talk to you about is assessing your business model design. Once you've built your business model, you need to assess how good is it? How well does it work? And this is just a little structure that we use kind of in our capital company as we're looking at business models to help us figure out how good is the business model that's been designed. In other words, is it easy for my customers to leave me? Well, then you're going to get a low score. But if my customers are locked in for several years, you're going to get a high score. Recurring revenues, are all of my sales transactional, meaning I sell it once and the next time you buy it, I have to get it again? Or is there some sort of reoccurring revenue? Netflix, recurring revenues. Transactional, I need to go, you know, buy a pencil. That's a transactional thing. Earning versus spending, do I get 100% of my cost of goods sold before I earn revenue? Or can I get 100% of my revenue before incurring cost of goods sold? This was a huge thing that Dell was known for, Michael Dell. He was the first person to say, you know, you're going to buy a computer, then I'm going to build it for you. So he would literally get 100% of his revenue before he incurred any of his costs, because you would pay for the computer, then he would go build it. And so that was, you know, for him, he would be a 10. Game-changing cost structure, in other words, is my cost 30% higher than my competitors? Is it lower than my competitors? Again, you give yourself a score. And then there's a few other questions we ask, you know, who does the work? Do I do it? Is value created free by external parties? If you think about the patients like me example I gave you in the video, you know, people are submitting all of these health questions and all of these health things. They are aggregating that data and selling it to a pharmaceutical company. That value is created for free by external parties because everyone's contributing their stuff. Scalability, can it grow? Does it take a lot of resources to grow? No resources to grow. Software is normally typically very scalable. Anything that requires heavy assets, typically not. And then what type of protection from my competition do I have? Do I have something that is patented or unique, or can I be copied pretty easy? And so you just want to kind of assess all of these things and give yourself a score. And in our case, we're looking for, we have 7 criteria total. And our kind of bottom line is if we took a 6 on every one of those, you'd end up with a 42. We're kind of in a 42-ish range. We're trying to be at least 40 or better for us to really start considering, does the business model we have designed work? And will it, bring value to the organization as a whole? Can we make enough money? So I know this was quick and we went through kind of business model design, but hopefully between the previous video and this video, you're kind of having a good understanding of what we're trying to do, and look forward to meeting you again in the next class.